You know that moment in the bathroom mirror, mascara running like an August storm in Georgia, when you ask yourself, how long have I played the good big sister, and for what? Yeah. That night, I had that moment, and I decided to stop being the reasonable sister. That night, I chose a crazy plan: hire the attorney who beat my little sister in her divorce, so he could pretend to be my boyfriend in front of the whole family. You heard me right. I'm Harper Reed, 30, raised on the smell of pine, salt air, and frogs singing along the lowcountry marsh. People call me the nice girl with a checklist. My schedule lined up like the lampposts on River Street: 6:30 a.m. run, 8 o'clock at the station, 12:10 a.m. tossed salad at my desk, afternoons cutting shows, evenings home with a lightly sweetened sweet tea. Don't tell my mom. I thought my life was calm, until I finally understood this. My sister, Sloane, is a year-round tropical storm. Sloane's 2 years younger, the kind of pretty that makes every party tilt its lights in her direction. She has this signature laugh, half secret, half promise of trouble. You won't hear the exhaustion in it, only the wow. And me? I'm the one picking up the chairs after the wow passes. From high school to college to career, Sloane glided over everything like brand new skates, and there was always someone ready to steady her. And my family? We're the rescue crew, no payroll. That night was my dad Walter's 58th birthday at home. Boiled shrimp, charred corn, a little country music. I brought Mason Hale, the 3-month boyfriend, to meet everyone. Mason runs a wedding photo studio, warm guy, soft laugh, the kind of hair toss that convinces you he's really listening. My mom, Anita, hugged me, whispered, "I like this one." I smiled. I hope so. I should have known, wishes like that in my family are as fragile as thin glass. Around 9 p.m., when folks drifted from the backyard to the living room, I went to the kitchen for more ice. When I came back, Mason was gone. I texted, "I'm in the kitchen," no reply. That gut feeling, the one women develop after a few hurricane seasons, pulled me down the hallway, through the side door, into the garage that always sits half open because of the cranky hinge. I found Sloane and Mason standing close, wrapped in the smell of gasoline and a wheezing ceiling fan. Sloane leaned casually against the tool shelf, looking up with professional innocence. Mason looked like a guy lost in a night market, knows it's wrong, still can't help stopping to stare. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why. I stood in the doorway long enough for both of them to understand that image was permanently stamped in my head. "Go back to the party," I said, voice cold as the ice in my glass. Mason stammered, "Harper, I held up a hand. Don't." I turned away, pulled down the garage door, and the spring squealed like the old house exhaling. I climbed the stairs, slipped into my parents' bathroom, flipped on that tired yellow light. The mirror was fogged, my mascara smeared, hair a mess. Some moments split your life like a peach down the seam, before and after. Before, I was the reasonable sister, covering for Sloane, explaining her away, sacrificing because family is forever. After, I was a woman who knows how to draw boundaries and will do the uncomfortable thing to live honestly with herself. I washed my face, breathed slow, opened my phone. I typed Charleston divorce attorney Cole, because Jackson Cole was a name that floated through an argument last year. When Sloane divorced Drew Maddox, a kind to a fault city sysadmin, it was a grind. Jackson represented Drew. I didn't follow the details, but the rumor was, the man is straight as a plank of white oak and submits evidence that makes the other side retreat. You know who the other side was? I found the firm's website. Headshot, navy suit, striped tie, a smile polite enough to earn your trust, distant enough you won't try anything cute. I called. "Cole and Harper Law, how may I help you?" the receptionist said. "This is Harper Reed. I need an appointment with attorney Jackson Cole about a family matter." "Earliest you have." A day later, I drove the 2+ hours to Charleston. That city always smells like salt and history. Jackson's office sat in a red brick building with stone steps and a heavy wooden door, everything saying, "We mean business." He entered the conference room on time, handshake firm. "Ms. Reed. I've got about 45 minutes. How can I help?" "I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend," I said, straight as a noon power pole. No small talk. A beat of silence. I heard the clock tick. No eye roll, no smirk. He tilted his head like he was listening to unusual music. "Go on." My sister, Sloane, has a habit of wrecking my relationships. Not because she loves those men. Because it's power. Last night she tried it in the garage with my boyfriend. I'm done. I want to expose the pattern in front of my family, with receipts, so they'll stop enabling her. Why me? He asked. Because you've faced Sloane before. You know her plays. And I need someone steady enough not to catch feelings when she throws bait. Also, you'll know how to keep it within the law, not turn this into a dirty stunt. Jackson leaned back. Define within the law. No illegal traps. No staged falsehoods. We just record what actually happens, texts, invitations, line-crossing touches. And I want to end this family loop. I'm a lawyer, Ms. Reed, not an actor. I'll pay your hourly. I met his eyes. But I don't think this is just about money. I think you have your own reasons to be less than charmed by my sister. I said it softly, but clear. A twitch in his jaw. What do you know? I know she made your life hard during that case. I don't need details. I know enough to trust you don't owe her anything. He exhaled, short. Assume I take it. What's the plan? First, we go just public enough, dinner on River Street, a backlit photo by the Savannah River. Next, Sunday dinner with my parents. I know Sloane. She'll test boundaries. We won't prompt, we'll document, texts, calls, invites. After a few weeks, at my parents' anniversary party on the riverfront, she'll make her final move. That's when we show our cards, with clear evidence, in front of the family. Jackson paused. You consider the fallout? After that night, you and your sister might not speak for a long time. Maybe ever. I haven't really spoken to her in a long time, I said. We've just been playing roles. He laced his fingers, met my eyes. I'll do it. Conditions, transparency. No planted cameras, no manufactured scenes. I keep professional boundaries, polite and kind to your family, never excessive. And you prepare to face truth, not only about your sister, but about your family. I accept. All right, Jackson said, standing. Shake on it. His hand was warm, steady. I walked out feeling like I'd just signed a contract with a part of my own courage. 3 days later, Jackson drove down to Savannah on Friday night. We had dinner at the Wild Dock Bar, river breeze salty, yellow lights wobbling on the dock. We stuck to safe topics, work, the podcast I'm producing, cases he's won and lost, how people from Charleston pronounce pecan. He laughs sparingly but it's real. And me? I felt oddly light. Light because, for once, someone was helping me make a plan instead of telling me to just let it go. We snapped a backlit photo by the river, 2 silhouettes and a line of glittering water. I posted to my 24-hour story, no caption, just a tiny hand-drawn heart sticker. 10 minutes later, Mom texted, "Who's this, honey?" I sent a smiley. 20 minutes later, Sloane dropped the wide eyes emoji. No words. Sunday, I brought Jackson to Sunday dinner. Dad, Walter, was flipping ribs, Mom glazing barbecue sauce. This is Jackson, I said like I was introducing a new dining chair. Jackson shook Dad's hand, nodded at Mom, yes, ma'am in perfect Southern. Sloane stepped out in a simple white dress, though she knows how to turn simple into spotlight. Her smile bloomed like the party just hired a live band. Jackson, right? Sloane extended her hand, welcome to the Reed house. Harper tells us almost nothing, I'm dying of curiosity. Pleasure, Jackson said, polite, with a measured distance. I noticed. I said a quiet thank you to the universe. Dinner played out exactly as I predicted. Sloane asked questions, harmless if you isolate them, so you're in Charleston? Or do you come to Savannah a lot? Do you do yoga? I've got a guest pass this week. Beach or mountains? On paper, all kind. But I know the slope of her words. She leaned in with each answer, brushed a laugh, light touch to his wrist while offering more salad. My mom saw it all, but she chose to pour more tea. Jackson didn't flinch. He treated everyone, especially my mom, like they were the center of the room. With me, he was gentle, hand on my back as I stood to grab napkins, small, ordinary gestures that were enough to make Sloane underline things in her head. After dinner, Sloane coincidentally helped me with dishes. She cast a line, "You look happy, sis." "I'm glad for you." "Thanks," I said. She polished a plate like a mirror, then looked at me in it. "Just hope you know who you're dating." "I do," I said. "Don't worry." Late that night, As Jackson opened my car door, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, looked up. Sloan. Just sending a funny meme. He showed me some dumb joke about lawyers and romance. I snorted. Welcome to the Read Home reality show. No response, Jackson said, swiping the notification away, tone flat like a court order. I nodded, set his phone in the center console like placing our first piece of evidence. That night, in my bedroom mirror, I didn't cry. I scrubbed the mascara, tied my hair back, and looked at the woman I'd abandoned for years. Doing the right thing is rarely comfortable. But comfort isn't the yardstick for growing up. Monday morning, Jackson forwarded a screenshot, Sloan inviting him for a quick coffee near Forsyth. Later, a wrong recipient selfie from her, worn lighting, low neckline, caption oops wrong chat. 5 minutes after, so sorry, meant for someone else. Neither of us replied. We logged everything. 3 days later, Jackson swung through Savannah again. We strolled River Street, ate pecan ice cream, argued pecan versus pecan. I won, locals privilege. And somewhere between throwaway lines, something strange happened. I felt peace beside him, the kind where you don't have to perform. Before driving back to Charleston, he leaned against his car door. You ready for the next few weeks? It's gonna be uncomfortable. I was born in Georgia in August, I said. Uncomfortable comes standard. He smiled. See you next Sunday. And Harper. You're doing great. I stood there a moment after his car disappeared under the live oaks. Cicadas, damp air, fresh-cut grass. I texted my mom, bringing Jackson again Sunday. She sent a heart. I exhaled, long and full. The plan was rolling. As for my heart, no idea. But I knew this, if the choice is between polite silence and loud truth, this time I choose loud. There's something weirdly thrilling about living a lie that feels more honest than your real life. That week, my social feed turned into a stage. Photos of me and Jackson laughing over coffee, walking down River Street, one of him fixing my hair in the wind, all subtle enough to look candid, all deliberate enough to send a message, Harper's finally got someone. My mother commented on every post with hearts. My dad gave a thumbs up. And Sloan? She didn't comment at all. Which, in my family, was louder than a scream. By Wednesday, Jackson texted. Jackson, got our first bite. Me, from who? Jackson, guess. Me, if it's Sloan, I'm not sure if I should laugh or lock my phone in a safe. Jackson, she sent a GIF. A fox with the caption smooth operator. No text. Me, she's starting slow. Jackson, she's calculating. He wasn't wrong. By Friday, she'd texted again. Hey, Jackson, do you happen to know a good brunch spot in Charleston? Thinking of a quick weekend trip, smiley face. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. The message wasn't about brunch. It was about boundaries. Sunday dinner came faster than expected. When Jackson walked into my parents' house, my mom nearly swooned. Oh my, Harper, he looks just like those men in Hallmark movies, she whispered, clutching her apron. Jackson just laughed politely, handing her a bottle of wine. Ma'am, I promise I'm more useful than I look. Then there was Sloan, barefoot, silk slip dress, hair like she'd just stepped out of a salon ad. She flashed that easy smile that had always fooled everyone except me. Jackson. Wow, didn't expect to see you again so soon. She brushed past me and hugged him, like we'd been replaced in the script. Jackson handled it like a pro. He took one small step back, just enough to make it look like a polite boundary, but not enough to cause a scene. Good to see you too, Sloan. Dinner smells amazing. It's just chicken, she said, twirling her hair. Mom burned half of it, but we're pretending she didn't. Classic Sloan. Always finding a way to make everything sound like a private joke, one that excluded everyone else. We sat down to eat. My mom gushed about Jackson's job, my dad quizzed him about fishing on the Ashley River, and Sloan. She studied him like she was memorizing his tells in a poker game. She laughed too loudly at his jokes. She leaned forward every time he spoke. She accidentally dropped her napkin twice. By dessert, I was ready to throw the pie across the table. When dinner ended, Mom insisted Jackson stay for coffee. Sloan volunteered to help in the kitchen. Which, in our family, meant, I'm about to stir trouble. While I refilled mugs, I heard her voice, soft, conspiratorial, through the half-closed door. "So, you and Harper serious?" "She never really does serious, you know." Jackson's reply was calm, measured. "We're taking things one step at a time." She said, that fake sweet hum that used to make teachers forgive her for cheating. "Well, I just hope she's being honest with you. Harper has walls. Big ones." I stepped in before she could build more lies. "Hey, Sloan, need a hand with that creamer?" She smiled too fast. "Oh. Just girl talk. Don't worry. Girl talk. Right." That night, when Jackson dropped me off, he didn't even wait for me to ask. "She's probing," he said. "Not flirting yet. Just gathering intel. She's like a cat before the pounce." He smirked. "Then let's give her something shiny to chase." And that's how Phase 2 began. The next 2 weeks were a slow burn performance. We posted more pictures, one of me and Jackson at a farmer's market, one on Tybee Island with his arm around me while seagulls blurred the background. Each time, Sloan found a way to insert herself. "Sloan, you two are cute. Didn't know you liked the beach that much, Harp." Me, people change. Sloan, yeah, some faster than others, winky face. It was her favorite move, the backhanded compliment wrapped in a giggle. Then came the accidental photo. It hit Jackson's phone at 10:14 p.m. on a Wednesday. Sloan, in a mirror selfie. Pajama top hanging off one shoulder. Caption. "OMG, wrong person. Sorry. Ha." Followed by, "Don't tell Harper, she'll kill me." Jackson forwarded it to me with no comment. I just stared at the screen, shaking my head. "She's nothing if not predictable." He texted back. "Predictability makes for great evidence." We met in Jackson's Charleston office every Friday to review materials. That's what he called it. But sitting across from him in that glass and steel space, looking at printed screenshots and tiny notes, I couldn't ignore the way he made me feel safer than I'd felt in years. One afternoon, he caught me staring. "What?" he asked, looking up from his laptop. "Nothing," I said too fast. "You're thinking something," he pressed, smiling. I sighed. "Just, weird how fake things feel more real lately." "Maybe that's because you're finally in control of the story," he said. It was a simple line, but it hit deep. For years, I'd been reacting this alone. Now I was writing the script. And somewhere in between text logs and dinner rehearsals, Jackson had stopped being just an ally. He'd become the calm I didn't know I was missing. 2 days before my parents' anniversary party, Sloan made her first real move. "Sloan, hey, Jackson. I'll be downtown tomorrow for a meeting. Coffee at 2? Jackson accepted. He didn't tell me until afterward. When he showed up at my place that evening, his jaw was tight. "She made her play," he said. He told me how she'd leaned in, voice syrupy, talking about how Harper can be complicated. How she'd touched his arm, told him he deserved someone who really gets him. Then she'd smiled that slow, practiced smile I knew by heart. "And?" I asked. "I told her," Jackson said, "that I appreciate the concern, but I already know exactly who Harper is. And that's why I'm here." My chest tightened. "You said that?" "I did." "Good line," I muttered. "Not a line," he said softly. Later that night, I sat on my porch swing, phone glowing in the dark. A message popped up from Mom. "Don't forget the party Saturday. Dress nice, everyone's excited to meet Jackson again." "Yeah. I bet." I watched the reflection of the screen on my glass of sweet tea, thinking about all the lies it had taken to finally get to some kind of truth. And as much as I wanted revenge, what scared me more was how much I didn't want to lose the part of this that wasn't fake anymore. The trap was set. Sloan would take the bait. And I had no idea that, by the time she did, I'd already be the one with something to lose. You ever walk into a party knowing someone's about to lose their mask? That was me, that night by the river. My parents' 25th anniversary was the kind of southern celebration that made Pinterest boards look underdressed, string lights, white tents, a jazz band, and enough food to feed a wedding. We rented this waterfront venue in downtown Savannah, overlooking the slow, glittering curve of the river. The air smelled like magnolia and champagne. I wore emerald green, fitted, sharp, the opposite of how I used to feel. Jackson said it looked dangerous. Good. That's exactly the energy I wanted. Ready? He asked as we walked in, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back. Not even close, I said. But let's do it anyway. Inside, everyone was already glowing from wine and nostalgia. My mom squealed when she saw us. There they are, the lovebirds. My dad clapped Jackson on the shoulder like he'd already been voted into the family. And then, of course, there was her. Sloane floated across the room like a white swan, literally, white. A tight satin dress that left nothing to the imagination. Hair in waves, smile polished to a weapon. She hugged me first, quick, perfunctory. Then turned to Jackson, tilting her head. Wow, she said. You clean up nice. Jackson smiled politely. So do you. The air between them tightened, not flirty, not hostile, just charged, like static before a storm. I could feel my pulse in my ears. Tonight was it. For the first hour, we played our parts. Jackson worked the room like a seasoned politician. I stuck close, laughing when appropriate, sipping champagne slower than everyone else. But Sloane, she was watching. I saw her reflection in the windows, tracking every time Jackson brushed his hand against mine. Every time he leaned close to whisper something. She was plotting. I could see it in the slight tilt of her head, the same look she'd had before every disaster in my life. At around 8 p.m., the band took a break. People drifted outside for air. That's when I noticed Sloane slip toward the balcony, her glass half full. Jackson followed 2 minutes later, exactly like we'd planned. I counted to 30 and followed too. The balcony stretched over the water, lit by soft yellow bulbs and the distant glow of the city skyline. Sloane stood near the railing, back arched just enough to look effortless. Jackson was a few feet away, hands in his pockets, polite distance, but I could feel the pull in the air. I've been wanting to talk to you, Sloane said, voice low. About? Jackson asked. She sighed dramatically. About Harper. About you. I just think you deserve to know what you're getting into. Is that right? She's not bad. She's just, she paused, searching for the right poison, fragile. Emotional. She builds stories in her head and then punishes people for not living up to them. She stepped closer. I'm only saying this because I've seen her ruin things before. And you don't seem like the kind of man who deserves that. Jackson's expression stayed unreadable. So what kind of man do I deserve? Sloane smiled, slow and deliberate. Someone who sees you. Someone who doesn't need to compete with you. Someone who knows how to keep things exciting. Her hand touched his chest. That was my cue. I stepped out from the shadows. Funny, I said. Because I could have sworn you were the one who kept things too exciting. Sloane spun around, eyes wide. Harper. This isn't what it looks like. Oh, come on, I said, walking forward. You've used that line since we were teenagers. You're gonna need a new one. Jackson pulled his phone from his jacket pocket. Calm, professional. You recognize me, don't you, Sloane? She frowned. What? Jackson Cole. Attorney. Charleston. I represented your ex-husband, Drew Maddox, in your divorce. The blood drained from her face. That's impossible. You and Harper, you're exactly what you think we are, I said. Only we've been documenting every text, every photo, every time you tried to seduce him. You can't do this. This is illegal. It's not, Jackson said evenly. Entrapment requires law enforcement. I'm just a private citizen who agreed to help someone see the truth. She turned to me, panic breaking through her voice. Harper, please, you can't. I'm your sister. Yeah, I said quietly. You're my sister. And for 10 years, you've treated me like your favorite experiment. Connor, Ben, Mason, you burned through them all, and I stayed quiet. But not tonight. Her lips trembled. You don't understand. No, for once, I understand perfectly. I pulled my phone from my purse and opened the gallery, screenshots, messages, timestamps. Every word, Sloane. Every move. You can keep lying, or you can face this like an adult. Your choice. The balcony door opened behind us. Girls? My mom's voice. Everyone's wondering where you are. I turned, forcing a smile. We'll be right in, Mom. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Mom, I said, holding up my phone. Actually, can you and Dad come here for a minute? There's something you need to see. We sat in a small side room inside the venue, me, Sloane, my parents, and Jackson. The jazz band played softly in the distance, muffled by the walls. I laid everything out. Years of betrayal. The setup. The evidence. The messages. My mom cried before I even finished. My dad's face turned the color of raw brick. Sloane tried to fight it, her voice shaking. She's making it sound worse than it is. I was just, I don't know, joking around. Jackson opened a folder from his briefcase. Yes, he brought one. Mr. and Mrs. Reed, during your daughter's divorce, I documented 5 separate affairs. Attempts to extort her ex-husband for money. False reports filed against me personally. He laid down the papers, one by one. This is who your daughter is, he said quietly. And Harper has spent her life paying the emotional cost of it. My father looked at Sloane. Is this true? Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Then finally, some of it, maybe. My father's voice was low, steady, the voice that used to make us freeze as kids. Stop. No more lies. The silence that followed was so heavy it felt like humidity, thick, choking, inescapable. Finally, my mom whispered, I think you should leave, Sloane. Mom. Now. Sloane stood, shaking. The tears this time looked real, not performative, not pretty. You just destroyed this family, she said, glaring at me. I shook my head. No, Sloane. I just stopped covering for you. She left without another word. The door shut softly behind her. For the first time in my adult life, my mother reached across the table and took my hand. I'm so sorry, Harper, she whispered. We should have protected you. We should have seen it. My dad just nodded, eyes glassy. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. For standing up. For not letting it happen again. The party went on without us, laughter echoing through the walls, completely unaware that upstairs, one family was breaking and rebuilding at the same time. When we finally left, past midnight, Jackson walked me to his car. The night was warm and still, the river shimmering under the moonlight. You okay? He asked. I don't know, I said. I thought I'd feel vindicated. But I mostly feel tired. He nodded. That's normal. You've been carrying this for a long time. I looked up at him. What happens now? Jackson smiled, small, genuine. Now we stop pretending. My chest tightened. You mean? I mean, he said, taking my hand, we see what this looks like when it's real. The wind off the river was soft, carrying faint laughter and the smell of salt. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's victim. I felt like someone who finally chose herself. The funny thing about explosions is how quiet everything gets afterward. For days after the anniversary party, the house felt like a museum, every sound too loud, every silence too loaded. Mom stopped texting in emojis. Dad spent hours out in the yard fixing a fence that didn't need fixing. And I just tried to breathe. Then, one Monday morning, Mom called. Harper, she said, voice small. Your father and I are starting therapy. Family therapy. We'd like you to join us. I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to cry. After 30 years of denial, now they wanted therapy? Still, I said yes. Because sometimes peace doesn't knock twice. Our first session was in this cozy office near Forsyth Park, walls covered in books and soft light, the faint hum of a sound machine in the corner. The therapist, Dr. Weller, looked like the kind of woman who'd hand you tissues before you even realized you needed them. Mom talked first. I think, she said, twisting her wedding ring, we made excuses for Sloane because it was easier. Easier than admitting we failed her. Failed both of them. Dr. Weller nodded. Failed how? Mom took a shaky breath. When Sloane was 17, she got into trouble. She was seeing this older guy. We didn't want it public, so Walter paid him off to keep quiet. We told Sloane it never happened, that she was fine, that everything was fine. And I think that was the moment she learned that lies could save her. My stomach dropped. I'd had no idea. Dad spoke next, voice rough. We thought we were protecting her. But we were teaching her that consequences don't exist if you cry hard enough. Dr. Weller glanced at me. And you, Harper? Where were you in all this? I laughed softly. I was the cleanup crew. I kept the peace. I made sure Mom didn't cry and Dad didn't yell. I thought that's what good daughters do. The room went still. For the first time, I said it out loud. I was the backup plan, not the priority. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Honey, I'm so sorry. I know, I said. But being sorry doesn't unmake the years I spent thinking I was less lovable because I was the stable one. Dr. Weller leaned forward. Sometimes healing starts when we stop managing other people's storms and start standing in our own sunlight. It hit me right in the chest. A week later, Jackson drove up from Charleston for dinner. No pretending this time. He didn't bring a briefcase. Just a bottle of wine and that quiet steadiness that somehow made chaos feel optional. We sat on my porch, watching the sky turn that peach-blue color Savannah does best. So, he said, how's the Reed family recovery tour going? I smirked. Messy. Therapeutic. Expensive. He chuckled. That's the holy trinity of progress. I told him about therapy, about the secret from the past, about how strange it felt to understand Sloane and still be furious with her. He listened, the way only people who've been through their own kind of wreckage know how to. When I finished, he said quietly, understanding doesn't mean excusing, Harper. It just means you're no longer chained to what happened. I looked at him, and for a long moment, neither of us said anything. The cicadas filled the silence for us. Then he reached for my hand. You ever think maybe this, all of it, was the universe's messed up way of handing you back your voice? I smiled. If so, the universe has a weird sense of humor. He squeezed my hand. Maybe. But I like how it ended. The weeks that followed were still messy, but different. Mom and Dad kept their therapy appointments. They started asking questions instead of assuming answers. And me? I finally learned the joy of saying no without writing a paragraph afterward. Every now and then, I'd scroll through old photos, the fake smiles, the hollow birthdays, and feel this strange mix of grief and relief. Grief for the family we pretended to be. Relief that I didn't have to pretend anymore. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. Sloane, moving to Denver. Got a job at a design firm. I'm trying to be better. Would you talk before I leave? I stared at the screen for a full minute. The old me would have ignored it. The new me didn't want revenge anymore. Just peace. Me, sure. Coffee at the usual spot? We met at a small cafe near the park, the same place she'd once flirted with one of my coworkers. This time, she looked different. Paler. Quieter. Human. Thanks for coming, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Mom told me you're moving, I said. She nodded. Yeah. I need a new start. Less gossip, more mountains. We sat in awkward silence for a bit before she finally said it. I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the kind I used to fake. I didn't interrupt. I just waited. What I did to you was cruel, she said. I told myself it was harmless, that guys were just guys. But the truth is, I wanted to prove I could take anything from you. Because, you always had what I didn't. I frowned. And what's that? Respect, she said simply. You earned it. I never did. So I took what I could, attention. Power. I know that's messed up, but it's the truth. For a second, I didn't know how to feel. Anger, sadness, pity, all of it tangled up. Finally, I said, I don't know if I can forgive you. She nodded. I don't expect you to. I just wanted you to know I finally see what I did. And that was it. No tears, no hugs, just honesty. When she left, I sat there for a while, staring at the empty chair across from me. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like closure, quiet, necessary, real. That night, I called Jackson. How'd it go? He asked. Peaceful, I said. Which is new. He laughed softly. I'll take peaceful over dramatic any day. We talked for an hour about nothing, recipes, podcasts, random things. Before hanging up, he said, "You know, Harper, you've done something most people never do. You ended the cycle." I smiled. "No, Jackson. We did." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. 1 year later, I woke up to sunlight spilling through the sheer curtains and the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. Jackson was already up, of course he was. He's one of those people who sets an alarm for 6 a.m. even on weekends, because discipline builds peace. I padded in barefoot, hair a mess, heart calm. He turned, smiled, and handed me a mug. "Morning, trouble. Morning, counselor." That's what we called each other now, old jokes that never really got old. The last year had been softer. No fireworks, no family scandals, just a quiet rhythm of two people building something real after everything fake had burned away. I'd left the radio job in Savannah and started producing podcasts full-time, stories about real people, messy families, forgiveness. The kind of stories I used to be too scared to tell. Jackson still practiced law in Charleston, but we split our time between his city and mine, long drives, late-night music, laughter that didn't feel like armor anymore. My parents were still in therapy. They didn't talk much about the past, but they showed it in smaller ways, Dad asking how I felt instead of what I did, Mom texting just to say, "Proud of you." That was enough. And then, one Tuesday morning, a letter came. It was handwritten, postmarked from Denver. The return name said, Sloan Reed. I stood in the kitchen, envelope trembling in my hand. Jackson looked up from his laptop. "You okay?" I nodded, even though I wasn't sure. "It's from her." He walked over, quiet, giving me space. "Do you want to open it?" "Yeah," I said softly. "I think it's time." The paper inside smelled faintly of ink and coffee. Her handwriting, still neat, dramatic loops like she was signing autographs for a life she no longer lived. "Harper. I don't know if this letter will mean anything, but I've been thinking about you a lot lately. Denver is different. The air's thinner, the people slower to judge, maybe because they're too busy hiking. Therapy's still hard. Some days I feel like I'm peeling off skin that's grown wrong. But I'm learning. I wanted to say thank you, not for the humiliation, but for the mirror. You made me face myself. And I know now that you weren't trying to destroy me. You were trying to save yourself. Maybe, in a weird way, you saved me too. I don't expect to be part of your life again. But if you ever think of me, I hope it's not just the worst parts. I hope you remember that I loved you, even if I was terrible at showing it. Sloan." I read it twice, then a third time, slower. Something in me unclenched, not forgiveness exactly, but release. The kind you don't even realize you've been holding in until it's gone. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the drawer where I keep things that changed me, a photo from that night by the river, a therapy receipt, and a tiny note that once said, "Proud of you." That weekend, Jackson and I drove out to Tybee Island. It was late afternoon, the sun melting gold over the water, the kind of light that makes you feel like time's taking a breath. We walked barefoot through the sand, quiet for a while. Then he stopped, turned to me, and said, "You know, this is where I wanted to bring you on our first real date. Before all the chaos." I laughed. "We really took the scenic route, didn't we?" He grinned. "Yeah, but I'd take that route again, every messy, ridiculous mile of it." Then he pulled something from his pocket, small, simple, shining. My heart froze. "Harper Reed," he said, voice steady, eyes soft. "You taught me that love isn't rescue, and it isn't revenge. It's partnership. So, will you be my partner? For real this time?" I didn't cry right away. I just stood there, staring at the man who had once been part of my plan for vengeance and somehow became part of my healing. "Yes," I whispered. 1,000 times, yes. He slipped a ring on my finger, nothing flashy, just elegant, honest. We kissed, and somewhere behind us, a wave crashed like an exclamation mark from the universe. The wedding came 6 months later. Small, simple, just family and close friends. Mom cried through the entire ceremony. Dad couldn't stop taking photos. And right before we cut the cake, the wedding planner handed me a small envelope, no return address, postmarked again from Denver. Inside was a card. White. Clean. 2 sentences. "Congratulations. You deserve every bit of peace you fought for. S." I smiled, not because I'd won, but because we'd both survived the storm. As the band started playing, Jackson pulled me into his arms. "You good?" he whispered. "Better than good," I said. "Free." He kissed my forehead, and for the first time in years, I believed in second chances, not the fairy tale kind, but the kind you earn, inch by inch, truth by truth. Sometimes I think about that night on the river, the string lights, the lies unraveling, the sound of my own voice finally steady. I used to think that night was the end of something. Now I know it was just the start. Because healing doesn't always look like forgiveness or perfect families. Sometimes it's just a woman sitting by the water, wearing the ring she chose, reading a letter she didn't expect, and realizing she's finally, home inside her own skin.